Oh, good to see you.
Well, good to see you as well.
Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Bow the Father. It is 6:30, so we have a smaller crowd here tonight, but that's okay. So again, this is kind of an open forum. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. I'll try to answer to the best of my ability, and if I don't know, I'll go try to find out. So, floor is yours.
Lots of questions. So, if you're a practicing Catholic
Mm.
and you die,
Mhm.
is there a period of time where it should not elapse before you have a funeral mass and
Oh,
burial?
yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. As a matter of fact, I was thinking about this because I'm thinking for Friends Who in Faith next week. I was thinking about actually bringing this up as a topic because we've actually had several people in the parish. Maybe, I think we maybe talked to this last week too in Bow the Father. Um, these faithful people that have been practicing their faith their entire life and are not having funerals. So in general, the funeral is always directed towards the living, right? So, in other words, we're praying for the soul that has passed on,
Mhm.
but it's really meant to bring closure to those of us who remain. And so, in that regard, the funeral rites are actually rather optional,
Okay.
right? So, in other words, there's not like a hard requirement that one must have a funeral liturgy celebrated. Now, there are certain stipulations the church would upheld, and even on the realm of like a moral situation, when it comes to the dignity of the body, right? So, in other words, okay, if you don't want to have a vigil or a funeral mass or even like a committal ceremony, um, the church would still uphold that the cremains or the remains should still be buried,
Mhm.
right? Now, as far as time frame is concerned, there's been new directives that came out in 2022, I believe, that kind of gave some kind of direction on that. So, what it kind of stipulated was there's allowances, say, like, okay, well, keeping of cremains or remains can be licit provided they're going to be buried eventually. Now, the church doesn't really give a time frame on that. The idea there would be, though, probably sooner rather than later, especially if it's, cremains are one thing, but of course, if you have a body, well, you wouldn't be able to put the body and bury it as soon as humanly possible for more sanitary reasons than anything else. Um, Ideally, though, there's this aspect too when it comes to cremains that the church has always upheld that the cremains of a person should also be venerated. And so when people tend to come to me, and I've had several instances where, and I think it's mostly out of ignorance. It's not necessarily it's like it's intended this way, and it gets rather complicated though when somebody puts in their will, right, that they want to have something done to their cremains, which is against what the church would teach. And so in those instances, we try to kind of like have the conversation, and if it can be changed, we try to. But for legal reasons, sometimes you just can't. And so, primarily, what the conversation comes down to is, okay, well, if you want to keep grandma on your mantle, okay, but when are you going to open up your doors to your house to have the public come venerate grandma? Because that's what the church really says. We have these cemeteries, we have these places of public veneration. People can just come there and pray with the remains and venerate them. So if you're going to do that at your house, for instance, or on your property, that's okay if you actually give some times available for the public to do that. And now most people though would say, well, I don't want strangers coming to my house
Yeah.
for even if an hour. Well, yeah, then maybe just put them in the cemetery then, right? I mean, so yeah, the time frame on that is not necessarily something that's been clarified. But the assumption is that it's done relatively soon. And I think when you start getting into problems would be like, let's say my grandmother passed away or my parents passed away, and now I have like, I don't know, 4 or 5 urns in my house, and then all of a sudden I pass away.
Mhm.
Well, what happens to those?
Right.
Right? What we would not want to happen is that someone buys a new house and all of a sudden their closet there's these 5 vases that nobody knows where they came from, and they have just kind of just these ashes in there. What is that?
Right.
If someone didn't know any better, they could, just dump it outside or dump it down the drain or whatever. In which case, that would not show proper dignity to the body, right?
Yeah, I was thinking not so much cremains, but
Mhm.
more like if you're having you're going to be
A
buried
casket.
in,
Yeah, yeah.
in the
Mhm.
ground.
Yeah.
And let's say your family is spread out,
Yeah.
and they're like,
Yeah.
and I had it in my mind. I don't know why. I just thought, well, you're supposed to do it as quickly as possible. So it's like,
Well, I mean, there are civil laws about that too,
okay.
right? So, I mean, in other words, you have to follow the law.
Mhm.
And the law would dictate there has to be something happen to the body or for sanitary issues. The church was kind of, yeah, that's probably a good thing to do. But it's a little different. Like there's a Jewish tradition where, and the part of this is kind of a belief of when the soul actually leaves the body.
Mhm.
So in the Jewish tradition, typically what happened at the death of a person, they would cover mirrors because the tradition there is that a soul can be if they see a mirror, they may stay longer, and it's really trying to get them to go where they need to go. So again, that's some of that superstition.
They cover mirrors.
They cover the mirrors, right? All right.
All right.
So in other words, like, well, is that superstition? Is there, there's
Okay.
probably tradition goes back,
Okay.
far about
All right.
that. But primarily there is a time frame that's specific in especially Orthodox Judaism.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think like the Benedictines up in Conception,
Mhm.
Missouri, Northwest Missouri.
Mhm.
And I don't know if this is still true today, but like I was up there and one of their monks had died.
Yeah.
And I don't think they do any of the, whatever you call that, embalming.
Oh yeah, maybe yeah.
You know? And
Yeah.
so that, it's like, so they bury the body right
Yeah.
away. And it's,
Yeah. Yeah, and some of those are actually state to state or county by county.
Okay.
So like as far as like the law, I think Missouri the law is pretty open. Where compared like down to like Louisiana. So Louisiana, there are even laws about like burial because of the issues of like the swampland, the water,
Right.
right? So Missouri, I think they're relatively open, but they do dictate there has to be something done with the body in a timely manner. Yeah. So yeah, especially if you're not embalming, that would make even more sense
Yeah.
because decomposition will cause problems.
Right.
Yeah. Joe?
Yeah, my aunt sister is planning on having a green burial.
Mm.
And-
Like under a tree, like with a tree or something?
Well, it's actually be buried in a quilt and I think it is going to be out at Calvary Cemetery.
Yeah.
They've got a place.
Yeah.
That does the
Yeah.
green burials.
Yeah. There's
Actually be buried wrapped in a quilt and just put in the ground.
right straight in the ground without. Yeah. No, that's perfectly fine. I mean, again, as long as the body's buried, I mean, that's really what the church is really envisioning, right?
She's
And
a sister of mercy.
right. So wonderful. Actually, there's kind of a new thing that's coming out. Like people are now like being buried with like underneath a tree. So like their grave will be marked by the tree.
Mhm.
And so that's perfectly fine. I mean, what we want to avoid is certain things like there's something called hydrology, where what happens that they compress the body to like a fine powder, but instead of like putting in the cremains in like an urn, they just like dump them out into the sewer. And they call that a green as well because there's no like a lot of remains. There's not a lot of liquid. It's just very very just powder goes back into the storm sewer to a sewer. But of course we would say, well, that's not really a dignified way, right? So yeah, there's methods that the church would say are illicit, and there's methods to be like, maybe we're trying to avoid that. And yeah, I was going to actually talk about that because I think it's probably good to discuss in a Friends Food and Faith because I think there's a whole array of topics on that when it comes to like even like medical ethics and like when is it okay to say, okay, well maybe we can remove a treatment and all that kind of stuff. Because I think people really struggle with
Yeah.
that. I mean, I've had many conversations over my priesthood in a short amount of time with these struggles. Like, when is it okay to remove
Right.
the life support? Is it okay to do this? And it's like, and they do come down to circumstances.
Right.
I mean, they really do. It's not like really a hard fast. Like this is really what you do. There's generalities, of course, but also there's a lot of exceptions. And so I was certainly maybe talking about that next month or next week because it's Friends, Food, and Faith. And maybe with Lent, that might be something to really kind of look at too. So yeah, it's interesting you brought that up today, David, because I was even thinking about that the last couple of days. Like, yeah, all right.
I don't remember how many years ago this was, but it was the Archdiocese had a group of people that did end of life decisions.
Yep. They still have them.
They had it
Yeah.
in Sacred
Mhm.
Heart. I went to it.
Yeah.
And it was very informative.
Yeah, no, the Archdiocese does a really good job of that, and we have a few medical ethicists in the Archdiocese that kind of look at those things.
Yeah,
And
they had one there
Yeah,
who spoke.
yeah. So they're really, I encourage anyone to go check it out. But I mean, also too, like just because I've recently experienced, might be good just kind of bring it here and
Oh,
say,
yeah.
you know, and those kind of general discussions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think even the funeral issue itself too. I mean, that's I think kind of it's kind of sad in some ways that people don't want to do them, just because like I think you know. Say what you want about the liturgy, but I think there's two things we do very well in the Catholic Church, and those are weddings and funerals.
Yeah.
And it's rather interesting as society to see people kind of veering away from them, especially people that are very devout. And again, it's not like you have to do this, you know. Well, marriage is a little different. That's kind of a different story. But with like funerals, it's not like you have to. But I don't know. I mean, to me, it seems like you're missing out on something.
Oh, I
Like
agree.
you know, this
Yeah.
is what we do as Catholics. This is actually something that's actually very calming, but also gives us a lot of fulfillment.
I know when I went to the end of life decision, I think it was the pastor at Sacred Heart at the time,
Mhm.
and this was some time ago,
Mm.
but he spoke about one of his parishioners who was very, very faithful, and then he just stopped seeing her.
Mhm.
And then finally ran into some of her children, and he was like, well, where's your mom? And oh, she died, you know? And like she had fully intended
Right.
to have a funeral mass,
Right.
and they just dropped the ball,
Yeah,
didn't
right,
know about
right,
it, you know?
right.
And so it's like, man, how sad.
Well, and I think that's even more. And I think to that point, I mean, that's even more important. Why you should like write that down and put that in your will and say, here's what I want. You know, it's funny that we as priests we're required within 3 years of ordination to submit to the Archdiocese our funeral plans,
Mhm.
as well as like any directives or like power of attorney.
Mhm.
And I've really done well in the latter. I've really done on the well in the former. I have to probably do that at some point, but for good reason. I mean, because it just like that example is that you don't want to get to a point where you know somebody dies, especially a priest. Then what are we doing,
Mhm.
right? What are we going to do? Does anyone know what he wanted or anything
Yeah.
else? It should be known. And so I think the best way to do that is to make it official,
Mhm.
right? Because you know people come to me and say, "Well, Father, I want to do a funeral, I want to do a full mass and everything." I'm like, okay, I'll definitely keep that in mind.
Mhm.
But when it comes time for you know someone to pass, if your family doesn't know anything about it, it's really my word against theirs,
Right.
and I don't really have the power or the authority to really do a funeral in that case because
Right.
I'm not related to you. You know, I can do mortal masses all day, and I would be happy to do that, or intentions, and sure that we believe those are good things too. But I don't have the right to say we're doing this.
Mhm.
You know, so I would just say make it official. You know?
Hey, well, Dad had Mary take him up to,
Hutchins.
Shepherd.
yeah,
Mhm.
Shepherd. And a couple years before he died.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. I
made
think
all
that's
the plans for doing it here.
I think that's really wise because if you get other parties involved with it, and especially people in the family, and even like a you know, it's all known. Hey, when so and so passes, we'll call the funeral home. They're going to contact yeah. I mean, what's really kind of beautiful is I've had this happen a few times too, where people call us first. You know, all the free. My direction is okay. Yeah, we'll definitely do that, but you want to probably call the funeral home. They're the ones usually make the arrangements, and that's usually how it works. So usually you call a funeral parlor or home, they'll take control of the body, do what needs to be done, and then contact the church to get everything organized. That's one of the great services of having a funeral parlor, but if you go traditional back in the day, you didn't really have that.
Right.
So, hey, call the priest. The other usually aspect of that too is that the priest usually called to do last rites anyway.
Mhm.
And so usually it's already kind of keyed in. And you know, nowadays though, it's kind of interesting because you know we have this. Not these are bad, but we have a rise in hospital chaplaincy, which is beautiful and wonderful and good. But oftentimes, what happens? Someone may go to the hospital and then there's no connection there.
Mhm.
They may anoint the person in the hospital, the person dies, and I think like the priest at Sacred Heart was saying, we may not know.
Right.
In which case, at that point, the family takes over and it's like, all right, well,
Yeah.
If they call us, they call us. If they don't, I don't know. Yeah. So no, I think I want to talk about that for
Okay.
next week. So that's a good. Yeah, I think that'd be a good thing.
Is that next Tuesday?
Next Tuesday, Friends, Food, and Faith. Yeah. So I don't know what we're gonna do for Lent. We'll just have some pretzels and I don't know. We'll go more fasting and abstinence maybe that day. We'll see what goes on. Less feasting. Good. Any other questions, comments, concerns, heresies?
Well, I think a little bit about I think it's a little more obvious this year than it's been in the past, the differences in the Mass. I mean, just the solemnity. I think partly it might have been last year too, but I think part of it is the fact that we've got presentation involved too.
Oh yeah.
Because they've brought in a lot more of the depth.
Yeah, I think
we got into where we were not so but I think
solemn.
I think we got into where we were a fun parish rather than
Yeah. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I think we're blessed to have the people we have, right?
Mhm.
And so there's a great mixing in some ways of personalities and communities that actually are enlivening for each other, I think, right? And so no, I think that's a great gift. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, no, we're blessed to have the people we have, from presentation, from other places, and even our original St. Anne parishioners, right? So it's all good. But I think that's something that has been interesting to witness, is kind of these two cultures, personalities coming together and engaging with each other in a way that's been very fruitful. Of course, I think the hope was that we would get more people from presentation that kind of came over here. That doesn't seem like it has happened as much. I know there's some former parishioners presentation go into All Souls and go to Holy Spirit, which is great. Hey, you got to do what's best for you, and if you feel enrichment there, beautiful. I guess my concern has always been about those others, because we have, I think on the rolls there were somewhere around 300 families over at presentation. And between here and All Souls and Holy Spirit, also assuming maybe there's been some deaths or whatever, there's probably about 100 or so families that are just unaccounted for. And so the question I think in hand is, where are they? Where are they going? I think a lot of the information I'm getting from the former presentation parishioners, that a lot of them just haven't registered anywhere. And I think it's interesting, like this morning, it seemed this morning it was a smaller crowd at the Tuesday Mass than there usually is. But there's a lot of people that come to that Mass that we don't necessarily see come the St. Anne for Masses here. And I guess it's frustrating, because I think I understand the sadness in seeing a parish kind of, be folded into another. My own parish happened. I mean, the parish I grew up in is no longer a parish anymore. It's been subsumed to another parish. I mean, again, the church is still there and everything, but it's not the same. And I think even the priest there now, maybe he has probably a little more leeway, maybe, I don't know, but he's having Masses regularly at all three of those churches. But also he has help, right? So it's a little bit a different scenario. So understand like the heartache that can come with that. And I also think, maybe there's almost kind of this aspect of holding on hope that something will happen there. And at this point, when our discussions, we're really moving towards transferring that property to Catholic Charities. And the great benefit is that it's still going to remain a chapel. So people will still be able to celebrate Mass, will still be able to, congregate there, I'm sure. But, it might be a little different. I don't know. A lot of that's going to be up to Catholic Charities, how they want to do that. but I think it is it's a best case scenario for the parish
Yeah,
in that regard.
I think part of the trouble is so many of the parishioners from presentation had been moved 4 or 5 times before.
Yeah, we've had well, I mean that's the thing. Most of our parishioners come from presentation. They kind of just follow the wave,
Yeah.
from St. Kevin's or St. William to Holy Trinity to presentation out of here, and even that, I mean, God love them, for sticking with it
Yeah.
and being here. I don't know if others would have. I've heard from parishioners St. Anne that said if that would have happened here, they probably would have not been Catholic anymore. And it's like, oh, that's kind of sad in some ways. But I think that's kind of a reality of things too. I mean, these families are kind of in the wind, so to speak. I don't know what we can really do for them. Like I said, I tried having Sunday Mass over presentation for a little while, and I think we got a crowd about 30 to 40, which is probably about the same we would get at sometimes a 4:00 Mass. But what we noticed was that none of those people were actually former parishioners of LP or even parishioners here. And it was mostly people using it as like a last chance Mass, which again is fine, but that wasn't the purpose of doing it.
Mhm.
So it was funny, after I stopped doing it, I got a few letters from people, thanking me for doing it, but also like they weren't part of the parish. So it's like, yeah, you're welcome. But so yeah, I think we're just gonna keep on trying to do things, see what works and see what doesn't. And just, hey, sometimes you got to fail in order to know what to do.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's where we're at, I think.
I think one thing, more people need to know what masses are available.
Mhm.
Because, like my brothers and sisters said that there's Sunday evening masses at Sacred Heart, I think it is.
Mhm. Yeah, I think St. Ferdinand has a Sunday evening Mass and Sacred Heart does.
Oh, do
Yeah.
they?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I believe they do. Yeah. Yeah. So are you saying like we should probably publish those in our bulletin or something? I mean,
Well,
I'm not opposed to that. I'm fine.
I mean, sort of once in a while,
Mhm.
this case of letting the people know
What else is out there?
what else
Yeah.
is out there,
Yeah.
including possibly the other language masses and so on.
Sure. Yeah. That's not a bad idea. I know the struggle. I mean, also too, though, sometimes there's also a struggle of you want also get buy-in from the other pastors and that too. I mean, so like we start publishing other people's masses, there might be somewhat of an uproar on that from the pastors themselves. Not so much that we're not promoting them, but there may be some like, hey, why are you doing that? What's going on there? I know the struggle I have every year is if we're going to do a Mass at Newman Center or not. And so every September we kind of get together and it's like, should we do one? Should we not do one? And we start doing one. Ultimately what happens is, it's really primarily for the out of town students that don't really know where they're going or don't know what to do. But I think usually we might get a few people at the very beginning, but then as time goes on, I think they find their niche or actually, it's funny, we find a lot of Newman students coming here, not Newman, but UMSL students come here for Mass.
Mhm.
So it's like, okay, cool, great, if that works,
Yeah.
fine. Plus, also, I have to be kind of aware of, now we have Father Vincent here, it's fine, but once he leaves, I'm only allowed to do 2 Masses a day without getting approval, right? And so if we look at our Mass schedule, well, on Sunday we were 2 Masses, so that's pretty much going to be it. So going forward, we'll probably look at that. But yeah, as far as Mass schedules are concerned, yeah, that's always kind of interesting too, because then the other question is if a schedule changes, they don't necessarily have to notify anybody. And then we've been promoting this, then but you're every once in a while,
Well, that's like if other people, if we'd really passed out too much of the information of having the.
Yeah, I mean, we may do something on the vicariate level with that too, because I think people probably would, although the other side of the coin too is that it is pretty readily available. If you search these, you can pretty much easily find on the internet what the times are for a lot of the Masses. And I will say the Archdiocese, on the Archdiocese webpage, I find most of those are updated pretty accurately when you go to like find a Mass or whatever on the Archdiocese.
Well, that might be the thing to put in,
Mhm.
if you need a backup mass,
Mhm.
check
Or
this
just yell.
website.
Yeah, we could probably do that. Yeah, good. Also, I have two people watching online, so they're welcome to type in questions if they have any. But otherwise, any other questions or anything else?
I had a question about the subrogation. Is that what
Yeah,
the last thing?
subsummation. Yeah,
Subsummation. So when they determined in this last round that it was against canon law to close
The churches.
the churches,
Okay, yeah.
so
Well, it's not that it's against canon law.
okay.
So, um, okay. Used to be, and actually other dioceses have experienced this, and this was sort of a new experience. So we weren't the first one to kind of go through this kind of process of looking at the diocese, seeing what we should do for like combining parish, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
They actually started kind of before St. Louis began. As a matter of fact, Pittsburgh was doing it. I think Omaha, other places were kind of looking at this and saying, okay, we need to look at consolidation because we just don't have enough priests. We're trying to do that.
Right.
When we kind of started, we were the first ones to start under what they called the new process. So we started about 2021. Very shortly after we started the process of all things new, Rome handed down new guidelines, new canon law that would dictate the reasons for combining parishes and even closing churches.
Okay.
So it used to be, I think you're right, David. It used to be that, okay, when this happened, it was automatic usually. They were looking at kind of both and saying, okay, well, we can't afford it. Okay, fine, that makes sense. We'll subsume under this other parish. They get all the assets of the parish as well as all the debts. And that really hasn't changed. What All Things New came down and said, well, you can't subsume a parish for only one reason. There has to be a plethora of reasons, such as pre-shortage but not just pre-shortage. It also has to be financial issues and sacramental things, right?
Okay.
Now, at the same time, they gave guidelines of what it would mean to relegate a church. So the relegation of a church is a higher bar than just closing the parish.
Okay.
And so because churches are consecrated, they're baptized in a way. The idea there is that when a church is consecrated, there's a permanence there, right? They're meant to be there forever, or until Christ comes again. When you go and actually say we're going to not now relegate a church, that's actually a big deal.
So has that happened in St. Louis?
Well, the only time so far the only church that actually has been relegated has been St. David and Immaculate Conception down in Arnold. And the reason that was happening is because there was a tornado went through there, destroyed one of the churches, and the other church was too small to actually handle the entire crowd.
Okay.
So they're building a new church, which means they relegate both. They're going to sell both churches, and from the proceeds, build a new one.
Okay.
That was a good reason. Like, yeah, you don't have enough, sure, fine, whatever. Otherwise, the problem with this is that when it comes to this process now, it is kind of ambiguous because the process that would follow locally, that all the relegated church would be necessary was me to go to the Archbishop to say, we're having problems financially. We have these issues with these churches. We just can't afford to keep it open. And also it's causing some disturbance spiritually in the parish. I mean, all we need is a reason from the Archbishop's perspective, and he can say, when his prudence can say, okay, fine, let's do that. Mm-hmm. The issue that comes into play would be if someone were to challenge that. And by challenging me, not necessarily go back to the Archbishop and say, Archbishop, can you reconsider? They can do that. That's part of canon law too. The Archbishop come back and say, well, do you have any new reason that I haven't considered? Mm-hmm. In which case that could be reason to overturn it. Mm-hmm. If not, anyone in the parish boundary can actually submit it to Rome. Mm-hmm. And Rome, the problem now is it's ambiguous in the fact that before these changes came out, all Rome was looking at was, is there a process and did you follow it? Now it seems we've experienced with these turnovers with the parish subsumations, they're not looking at just that. They're looking at other things. And so the problem is it's not really clear what they're actually looking at to make those determinations, right? So in order to actually relegate a church now, what the going direction is, you want to make it airtight. You want to say, what are our clear reasons why? What have we also what have we tried to do to keep it going and actually maintain it and do those things? We have to kind of show we've done something or tried something, and it's either failed. But then the question come back, well, can you try other things? Or things you haven't thought about? It can be a mess. And so in that regard, I mean, and to be fair, they're looking at this as an aspect of, we shouldn't relegate churches. That's not something we actually should even really be thinking about because of what a church is. But there can be circumstances where we have to. And those may be, I think what Rome's looking at, those should be rather extreme. So that's kind of the situation we find ourselves now.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So the canon law, it's not that you couldn't relegate a church in combination with subsuming a parish. It's just that you have a much higher bar to relegate a church than subsume. And so you have to put that case up for both if you're going to do both at the same time. And so with all things new, it's sort of like when this came down kind of halfway through, it's sort of like, oh, well, we can't do, I mean, even subsuming parishes was kind of put a kibosh on it because that was the original goal was, okay, let's just reduce the parishes to something manageable. Well, we can't. Well, why can't we? Well, many of our parishes don't meet the criteria that was given by Rome, meaning it's not just pre-shortage. It's, well, we're having baptism here still. We're having first communions. We're having confirmations. We have a school that's running. Our finances are fine. We're in the black. What argument can you make? You really can't, right? So that was really the issue.
Okay.
Yeah. And still the issue. Now, it could be possible that Pope Leo would change that. I don't know why he would, though. At this point, it seems like that's what everyone's kind of doing. Look at that. And that's why St. Louis everyone was kind of looking to us to see how this went because we were the first ones to kind of go through this new process.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I'm not really sure, but I also wonder if maybe there have been other dioceses maybe have not gone through this process because they saw what happened here. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm sure there's probably some, but who knows for sure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I was at the first mass over at Holy Spirit.
Oh yeah, I mean after All Things New, or when it was first
really.
established.
Well, it was a change before All Things New. It was combining three parishes that were soccer enemies.
Sure. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, in many ways, we have two churches with one parish. I look at some of my brothers around me, and it could be much worse. I mean, if you look around, let's say with Father Kemp, for instance, BTC has been subsumed into Sacred Heart, but he's keeping the school open. And I think that's probably prudential judgment for him. I don't know all the circumstances there, but that's got to be difficult to run two schools. To our south, I mean, Father Schrader, God bless him, he's got two parishes and 5 buildings. With Christ the King that got subsumed St. Rita, All Saints, and I believe St. Roch got subsumed to St. Joseph. So he's dealing with all that stuff too. Our neighbor to the east, Father Scheider, he's got 4 buildings in one parish. It's not easy.
No,
it's not easy. And trying to make these determinations about what's best and what to do, because on one hand, you're saying, I can't really maintain these buildings, but also they're still churches, so what can we do? It's difficult. It's hard.
Yeah, I think we did have the slight advantage of the fact that Presentation didn't have a school at that point.
Well, I mean, the real reason that the Presentation got subsumed was, of course, pre-shortage was the one factor. They also had debt. Now, there's been a lot of discussion about that and the fact that it hasn't really affected anything. which is also why I'm really kind of focusing on my attention on kind of handing presentation over, because that debt, if we ever went through this again, will affect St. Anne, because that's a factor now of subsuming parishes, right? And so regardless of the fact we have, 10 baptisms a year, and we're having 17 kids get confirmed, and we have, 13, 16 kids getting first communion, and all this other great stuff, and 6 people come to the church for OCA, wonderful. But hey, that's a factor, right? And if we don't get more priests, it's very possible in 20, 30 years, might be looking at this again. And so what I would want not to happen is that there are no factors here that could lead down that path. And so that's where we're at. It wasn't the fact that the school is closed. The schools really is irrelevant. There are other parishes that don't have schools that are still maintained.
Yeah, but the soccer factor would have come in a lot more too, I think.
Sorry, say it again.
The soccer factor.
The soccer factor? What is the soccer factor, Joe?
So many of the parishes in the area are soccer enemies.
Yeah, I mean, I was never a soccer player, so I don't know what that was. I mean, yeah, I understand parish rivalry, and I think that's kind of part of what All Things New is trying to overcome. And maybe one can say, did it do it well? Who knows? But I think that's one thing that we were trying to promote, was that we're actually part of a larger entity than the parish.
Mm-hmm.
The parishes are good. They're good for the community. They're good centers of faith, and they should be. But also we're part of a bigger community of the Archdiocese, that we're all Catholic. We all practice the same faith. We all worship Christ. We all receive the Eucharist. That's the most important thing. And so the fact we have buildings is good, but they're not the main thing. I mean, I can say I've witnessed this a couple times now, even in before I was a priest, but even a seminarian, but before that, when I came back to St. Louis, maybe it's my fault, I don't know, but I came back to St. Louis to start going to the priesthood, and the first year I came back, they closed my old grade school. Now, I do know at that point, I think the writing was on the wall. I think it was kind of one of these things where it was going that way. The population was down, the area was aging. But also, too, I think there is a change of identity there. That, I mean, in many ways, I see that at St. Anne, the focus is a lot on the school. And understand, the school is an important ministry. It's probably one of the most important ministries we have. But it's also not the identity of the parish. And I think the problem with a lot of parishes that especially have schools, we tend to put our identity in the fact that we have a school or in the sport or whatever it is. And I think what benefited Immaculate Heart at that time was that they focused their attention not to the school, but to what was in the tabernacle. And I think that was actually really good. I was assigned my theology 2-year to St. James the Greater. And that year, they were announcing they were going to close the school and combine with St. Joan of Arc and Our Lady of Sorrows at South City Catholic Academy. And there was a lot of uproar about that. I remember talking to the parents outside of Mass about, well, our center, our focus is on the school. The school is the heart of the community. And I remember I told this mom, I said, well, I understand this school is important to us. And maybe my grandfather went here, my grandmother. I'm like, yeah. And we have that tradition and that history. But if we're not focused on what's going on in the tabernacle, it really doesn't matter. Right? It really doesn't matter. And I think that kind of shocked her, because I don't think she ever thought about it. But I mean, unfortunately, I think that's the focus of a lot of parish schools. And I don't know how you change that culture. It's hard to change that.
I think that was part of what I was trying to say earlier. With
Going through that, you kind of already understand what really matters, right? In many ways. And again, I'm not saying the school doesn't matter. The school matters. It's just that the school wouldn't be here without the tabernacle, right? And that's kind of the point, right? And I mean, I think it's trouble for every pastor to try to bridge that gap between our school families and our parish families. And some would say many places they're the same, but they're not here. I mean, here at St. Anne, it's unique in the fact that we're only 42% Catholic. and many of our Catholic families are not parishioners here, which is fine. No one's saying they should be, but that's hard to bridge that gap. And I will say the benefit, I think, St. Anne is that many of the Catholic families are parishioners. You'll see them at Mass on Sunday, and praise God. If that's the least you can, if that's the best thing you can say, I'd be a happy pastor with that. That's fine, right? But I also think that, I look at the school as kind of a evangelization ground where there's a lot of seed there. And right now, I think the struggle that I see personally is I would make a wager that if we're up to every child in the school that isn't baptized or isn't Catholic right now, I would say of that, 58% that's not Catholic, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe 80% of them would come into the church and get baptized and receive the sacraments if it was just up to them. I mean, maybe I'm off by that, but what I've been seeing over there, I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case. Mm-hmm. The struggle I usually run into, though, is the parents are not necessarily in that mindset. And one thing I'm kind of throwing around is doing summer OCIA. So what's interesting, the same this year as happened last year was when we reached out to people for coming to OCIA, we had about 40 people that said yes. And over those 40, we're now bringing in 6, which is, again, I'm ecstatic about that, right? That's a good number. That's a wonderful number. And even like when we start putting stuff online, people are watching that online. And so I'm wondering if we try to do like a summer OCIA, because, we don't have to bring people in the church just Easter Vigil. You can do that anytime. So I'm kind of throwing around maybe doing something over the summer. I'm trying to figure out what might be the best night to do it or the best time. Because my thought is that maybe people will have more time over the summer because there's not the sports, there's not now you run into vacations, but we can kind of work around that. So I'm kind of wondering if that might be something we should try. And I'm leaning towards yes. And even just me, sitting out here like we're doing now for an hour and a half every week. I'm just willing to give it a shot and see what happens. And that's kind of a lot of my pastor. I mean, as a pastor, that's all. I'm really open to things. I'm trying to do things, see what works.
Is there? Do you? I know. I mean, you can sit down and read the catechism, which I've done.
Yeah.
Actually. I mean, but is there a smaller book, like if you want to just introduce somebody to the Catholic faith, that really didn't know? Okay, what does that mean?
Yeah, I tell you what. There's actually a compendium of the catechism. That's a little booklet.
Okay.
And it condenses a lot of things into it. I mean, because as you know, with the catechism, that was written by John Paul II, at least the one that we currently have.
Yes.
And if anyone knows John Paul II's writing, he's very philosophical. And he uses some very, let's say, $10 words, right? Okay. That if you didn't have a lot of philosophy background or theology background, it'd probably be very hard to decipher. I mean, compare that to the Baltimore Catechism. Right. Now, I was actually confirmed and raised in the Baltimore Catechism. I was confirmed before the new catechism came out. And comparatively, I prefer the Baltimore Catechism. Yeah. Well, plus the way it kind of presents is a question and answer. It's like, so I mean, that I think is somewhat helpful. Not that what John Paul II did isn't helpful. I think it's beautiful. The catechism, I think, is beautiful writing, and it's really thick and rich. But that's the problem for a lot of people, is that maybe it's too thick and rich. So there's a smaller compendium, but also the USCCB has published a catechism that's really more American directed. And even though it may be about the same size of the catechism, the print is larger and it's really more, I think, theme driven. And I think it's a little bit easier to digest. Okay. So as a matter of fact, when we did OCIA at St. Gabriel and St. Raphael, that we used the USCCB book. And I thought that was actually pretty helpful because also too, for those who are working and have jobs and have lives outside of the church, they probably don't have time to read all of it. Yeah. And the nice thing about this book is that it's pretty bite-sizable. Okay. So I would recommend that. Okay. There's other things too. There's other good writings that are out there that could be. I mean, there's plenty of OCIA kind of materials that could be beneficial. But
Mhm.
I think the USCCB the compendium is really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as that's concerned.
Thinking about the students you were talking about, the 80%,
Mhm.
the 52%.
Mhm.
Uh, do, do you think all their parents know that they could, if
Well,
that
I
they would
mean,
be welcome,
I will say, since I've been here, what I tend I even started doing this when I was associate pastor. I have the information of the families in the school, and I actually reach out to them. I call them, I email them, and invite them and say, hey, we're starting this OCIA. And way I approach it, I don't say OCIA, I say adult faith formation.
Uh-huh.
Because the other thing that I recognize these sessions we're having on Sundays and Mondays, they're not just about those coming in the church. It's actually for everybody.
Okay.
So Catholics or non-Catholics, you're all welcome. We've had several Catholics come and participate, which has been great.
I keep attending and.
Yeah. It's fine. Yeah. But it's beautiful. It's wonderful to see because that's the intention. It's not just for those who are entering the church. It's also showing that we all need this, right? We all need that formation.
Yeah.
So I approach it that way and say, hey, we're having this adult faith formation starting up so and so. Hey, we're doing these times. And this year, what I actually asked them too is there a particular night that maybe work best for you other than Sunday?
Uh-huh.
And a lot of consensus came back Monday, and so that's why we're doing Monday nights too.
Okay.
But I think the other thing to keep in mind as well is that, and I think I've learned this over 14 years of teaching catechism and OCIA, is that it's not about your time; it's about God's time too. And so, part of my job, I think, is getting out of the way of the Holy Spirit to let Him guide. So we've had people come back and are now coming to the church. We've had people just starting out. We have some people that had to walk away because it was, this isn't really working. Or something obligation came up, and it's fine,
Mm-hmm.
So I think we'll see a lot of them again, and usually that's what happens. But I'm just trying to maybe make it easier,
Mhm.
So I find a lot of my job as a pastor is removing excuses for people, which is sometimes easier said than done. But that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I find when I call people, it's much harder for them to say no.
Yeah.
Although some have, which I totally respect. I think that it's okay to do that. But I would prefer you say no than say yes and not come.
Sure.
That's kind of the idea.
Yeah.
I think one thing that really seems positive is the fact that we're back to where the kids are coming to mass more than once a week.
Well, that's funny. I have to credit my brother, Father Chris Ruby, on that. So over the summer, actually, I think it was last spring, he was just assigned the new parochial administrator at Mary Magdalene in Brentwood. And he was telling me that for his sacramental years, he's having them come to mass at least one other time a week.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, that's a really great idea. And so I talked to our 8th teacher, Matt Hubbard. I talked to our 2nd grade teachers, Ms. Dunaway and Ms. Rhodes. And I said, what do you guys think about this? And they were like, yeah, that's cool. As a matter of fact, I was talking to Matt the other day, and he's like, yeah, I think we want to do that again for next year, even though it's not a sacramental year. I'm like, that's fine. Because he's like, yeah, at first I was like, when are we going to find time to do this? And I'm like, when can I not find time to do this? And I'm like, that's great. So we have good, wonderful teachers here that are engaged with the faith. And so we're going to keep that going.
Is the 6th grade coming too on?
Yeah. It's funny because, the 6th grade teacher, Ms. Dulles, she was like, she asked me, is it okay if we come? I'm like, yeah. I tell all the teachers, if you want to come every day, I'm fine with that. If you want to come at I'm not going to be opposed to that at all. And so it's just great that, they come when they can, and that's great.
There were, I don't know if this is still the case today, but these were people that were about my age range. But there were little towns in Illinois where the public school, because everybody was Catholic in the town, it was effectively a Catholic school that went to mass every morning. And when uniforms, but it was a public school, and it's like,
who knows? Maybe someday, maybe someone will take over Normandy or something. We'll see what we can do. No, I think it's been wonderful, and I think the kids have gotten a lot out of it too. It does kind of warm the heart. Maybe there's giving me a, who knows? Maybe they're just giving me a line. I don't know, but I've had so many kids I wish we go to mass every day. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, talk to your teacher. I'm okay if you want to do that. You know,
They're very respectful.
they are.
I mean,
They
it's
are.
silent in there when, it's like, wow.
One thing what's been really impressive for me with the school kids is how especially the older kids treat the younger kids.
Yeah.
You know, there's like this great bond there
Yeah.
that is really good to see.
Yeah, their buddy system
Yeah.
really works.
Yeah. But I mean, but all through, I mean, it's just like,
Mhm.
it's something about that. There's something really kind of unique there that you don't really see everywhere else.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're doing good work here.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Yeah. Well, good. Great. Anything else?
Big trouble is so much of the parish, of the real active parish is starting to die off.
Yeah, I mean that's really an ongoing discussion. It's funny. I've been talking to some of the people more my age, and I know one thing we always struggle with is trying to find volunteers for the different things. And what I'm hearing from a lot of our like family parishioners is that they try to get involved, but then they usually get relegated to someplace, or they don't really get contacted, or whatever, because they seem like they're kind of put out in the cold. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I imagine that's kind of similar to a lot of the different places. And I think what happens is a lot of times we get people that have been doing it for so long, they just know what to do, and it's not, that's great, right? Because that tribal knowledge is really helpful. But then there's also not necessarily opportunities for growth for other people.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that's one of the places where we had to reduce the fish fries.
Right.
Because, we weren't getting the new people
Yeah.
in, and it might have been partly a case of not
Yeah, I don't
really
know.
being open to
Yeah,
people.
I don't know. I mean, I'm wondering maybe if we can implement some kind of mentorship or something there. I don't know. Maybe that'd be an idea for the future. Is like, okay, well, hey, every volunteer, I mean, all the volunteers are helping with fish fry. Also, it might be, I don't know, maybe I might be more work. I don't know. But all those helping with the fish fry, if you can take one person under your wing and invite them and just like, hey, let's learn how to do this with me. Maybe that may be a way to overcome it. I don't know. Same with everything. I mean, whether it be dinner dance, whether it be, trivia nights, I don't know. That could be something we could look at, going forward.
It might be just a case we're not asking the people.
I find that's the thing. If you invite, people tend to come, and it's not like you're going to do this. Do you want to do this? Right.
At our fish fry meeting, one of the things we had questions on, one of the issues was the people who've been there all day are the ones doing the cleanup too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And thought really push the possibility of service hours and so on like that for the cleanup.
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing. It's interesting because we're talking with our confirmandi, and one of the question always is like service hours. And so then the question always, how many do I have to do? And it's like, well, we're not going to give you that, right? It's the idea is you want to do service. It's not that you have to do service. And so we don't necessarily give like a limit on that. But I do think it'd be very becoming to have our confirmandi to help out in those things.
Yeah, I mentioned the Sue to check on.
Well, I think part of the struggle, I think too, is that, we're having our confirmations relatively early this year. So we're having it, 2 weeks from yesterday. And so that's kind of early for confirmations. So there's may not be the opportunity after that, but although you would say that service should flow from the fact you're confirmed, right? So the character that we're given is one of service to other people. So, I mean, I know that Mr. Reft over there was talking about that he's thinking it might be mandatory for anyone that gets confirmed also signs up to be a server. I'm like, I'm not opposed to that either. But I think we tend to get more in the forcing aspect than the inviting aspect. And so I would much rather someone wants to serve that wants to serve than being forced to do it.
You have a lot more servers now than a decade ago.
Well,
There were no kids.
we've opened up to the fourth graders, and I mean, over time, what you tend to find is that the eighth graders tend to. What I'm doing now too is I'm taking one eighth grader from every year, and inviting them to be trained also as a master of ceremonies.
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah, I think that's the way to keep those, or especially those that show up, those that are engaged still.
What's the master of ceremony?
So a master of ceremony is someone that kind of basically runs a liturgy, make sure everything goes smoothly.
Like Paul
So-
Lee did.
Oh,
Yeah.
Paul.
Yeah.
My dad used to get a kick out of Paul, man. You would have sworn he was a priest.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. So my first assignment in seminary was the master of ceremonies at the cathedral,
Okay.
and I learned so much about liturgy
Oh,
in that one
wow.
year.
Okay.
And I think it also solidified my desire to become a priest. So I'm picking, and I don't think I'm telling any tales out of school. I'm picking young men
Uh-huh.
because, especially if I think there's a vocation there.
Yeah.
I'm trying to like kind of foster that.
Mhm.
So right now we have two. We got one. I'm going to ask, see what he says. I hope he says yes, but we'll see. And so we might see one of them at the confirmation on the 9th. So yeah, their job is basically make sure that everything's taken care of, everything is put out there properly, the liturgy runs smoothly. And even like one of the big jobs is like take care of the archbishop. So make sure that we bring his mitre and his crozier when that happens. And
Okay.
it's kind of I know personally is a big deal.
Yeah.
And so I think when we have younger people that kind of can engage with that and do it, that can be something that's good for them.
Sure.
So yeah,
Sure. Okay.
that's the plan anyway. So
Yeah, well, it also, case of the servers seem to know who to look for
Yeah.
for information.
right. And it is a big job. I mean, so it is a big job. I mean, I was told a story. Archbishop Carlson, when we first got here, apparently, the master. So Archbishop Carlson did something different than previous archbishops. He got rid of but he did not take on a secretary. So the job of the secretary is usually be the MC at those masses, take care of the bishop, make sure he has everything he needs. So in order to do that, the priest at the cathedral now became like the master of ceremony. So the first mass that this happened, the archbishop comes in, takes his crozier, his mitre, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and then apparently the archbishop just starts riffing. And so the MC is just like, what is he doing? And so after mass, he talked to the archbishop, like, Arch Excellency, what was that all about? He said, you have to bring the book over to me. I don't read it. I don't say it. I just read the book. If it's not in front of me, I'm not going to say it. So even like, the peace be with you, he was just like, no, I got to have that in front of me. So I think what that shows that every bishop, every priest has a different way. And so, because like compared to like Archbishop Jansky, he's rather autonomous. He's sort of like, he doesn't really bring an MC with him. He kind of just does his own thing. And so I think he's rather flexible in that regard compared to other bishops, So I think it's just the style.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how it goes. And it's the MC's job to kind of understand that and, provide for him in that regard.
Sure.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right.
Okay.
Well, thanks for coming, guys. Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Thank you, Father.
Yeah,
My
I was a
pleasure.
server all 4 years of high school, but we didn't have very many of
You know-
that lasted that.
I served up until through my freshman year, and that's because I got a job. And I remember one of the requirements that we had is if we stopped being a server, we had to tell the priest why. We had to tell the pastor why. And so when I went to my pastor, I'm just like, I'm getting this job. He's like, well, why can't you just serve masses like in the early morning? I'm like, well, the problem is I don't know when I might have to leave early. I don't know because of the way that work. I'm coming to mass. I'll still go to mass, but I can't dictate which mass I'm going to be going to. Because maybe I'll sign for the 8 o'clock, but I have to go in early and I have to go maybe the evening mass on Saturday or something. So I think that was a good reason, but I stopped at that point. I think now most parishes, I know here, just after you graduate, it's like, okay, we're off the schedule now. And I don't know if that's really the best way either.
That was, when I was in high school, it was the high schoolers that did the Sunday services.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm not, I mean,
possibly was a younger person as a second.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I think I don't think there's a reason why we can't just say, you're going to be on the list unless you come talk to me, you know? And I'm not going to be like, hey, if you don't want to serve, fine. I'm not going to say no. But also, I think they have that connection and just have the courage to say, yeah, I just don't want to do it anymore. Or I got other things going on. That's fine.
But I think part of it too is we lost our server continuity with COVID.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it happened in a lot of places. I know at St. Gabriel, yeah, the server pool dipped quite a bit after COVID. And I think it started going up a little bit afterwards. But I mean, yeah. I mean, usually what you find is you get a lot, the younger kids are the more gung-ho.
Mhm.
So your fourth, fifth, into sixth graders, seventh graders are difficult just because they don't want to be the center of attention. Although we only have one seventh grader in service right now anyway, and he's phenomenal. He's a good
Parker.
kid. Yeah, Parker. Yeah. So I think he's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, then it starts the eighth grade is where you get the eighth grade itis, and so it's just like whatever. If I'm off, if I get cut off, I mean, I have a policy with servers that if you don't show up 3 times in a row without letting me know or finding a sub, so if you can't find a sub, you let me know, and if you don't do that, you're off.
Yeah.
So we've had to kick some kids off for that too.
Mhm.
Then they come back and say, "Well, let me pick up guns." Like, well, all right, but are you going to show up? And then, that gives that discussion too. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
All right, guys. Have a good night. We'll see you next week for Friends, Food, and Faith. We'll talk about, I think, end of life and medical ethics stuff. So that might be a good topic to discuss why the church teaches what she does about end of life issues, funeral rites, and that good stuff. So we'll see you next week.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Father.
Thanks, guys. Got one.